The crystal towers of Thessera Prime shook as another blast hit the planetary shield. Yuna pressed her four-fingered hands against the cool surface of the command center window and watched the sky burn orange. The Krex ships hung in orbit like metal insects firing their weapons at her beautiful world. "How long can the shields hold?" she asked without turning around. "Maybe 6 hours," replied Kai, her science advisor. His leaf-green skin had turned pale with fear. "The power cores are failing one by one." Yuna closed her large, dark eyes and tried to think. The Vellani had never been fighters. They grew plants, studied stars, and sang to their crystal cities to make them grow. War was something they read about in old stories, not something that happened to real people. But the Krex Empire did not care about stories or songs. They wanted the rare crystals that grew in Thessera Prime's mountains. They had sent 500 warships to take them. "What about our fleet?" Yuna asked. Kai made a sad sound. "Destroyed. All 30 ships. Captain Noah tried to fight them, but..." He did not need to finish. Everyone knew what happened when plant-eaters tried to fight meat-eaters. The ground shook again. Through the window, Yuna could see fire starting in the lower city. Soon the Krex would break through the shields. Then they would land their soldiers and take everything. "Send the signal," she said quietly. "Which signal?" asked Kai. "The one we talked about. The emergency call. Send it to every star system we..." "No." Kai's eyes went wide. "But, Yuna, that will reach thousands of worlds. Most of them won't care about us. Some might even be dangerous." "More dangerous than the Krex?" Kai thought about this and started working at his console. His long fingers moved quickly over the crystal controls. "The message is ready." "What should it say?" Yuna thought carefully. They needed help, but they did not know who might answer. "This is the Vellani Confederation. Our world is under attack by the Krex Empire. We are peaceful people. We cannot fight them alone. Please help us. We will share our knowledge and friendship with anyone who comes to our aid." "That's it?" asked Kai. "Keep it simple. Desperate people should not try to be clever." The message went out through space faster than light, carried by quantum transmitters to every corner of the galaxy. Most worlds would ignore it. Some would laugh. A few might feel sorry, but do nothing. But somewhere out there, someone might care enough to help. Hours passed. The shields grew weaker. Krex ships moved closer to the planet. Yuna sat in her chair and watched the attack displays, trying to stay calm for her people. "Yuna," called Mira from the communication station. "I'm getting responses to our signal." "Good responses?" "Some. The Althani say they're sorry, but they can't help. The Xelon Republic sent wishes for good luck. The Cooperative of Free Worlds is having a meeting about it." "Nothing useful, then." "Wait." Mira's ears perked up. "There's something strange here. I'm getting a response from the Outer Rim. A system called Sol. Never heard of it." "Neither had I. But they're asking for our exact location and tactical information about the Krex fleet." Yuna felt a small spark of hope. "They want to help?" "It sounds like it. They're asking very specific questions about enemy ship types, weapons, and troop numbers. Like they're planning something." "Send them everything we have." As Mira worked, another voice called out from across the room. It was Leo, who watched the long-range sensors. "Yuna, you need to see this." She walked over to his station. On the screen, she could see dots of light moving through space toward their system. "Ships?" she asked. "Yes, but..." Leo looked confused. "The energy readings don't make sense. These ships are huge, and there are so many of them. Yuna counted the dots. There were at least 200 ships heading their way. Her heart jumped with joy, then sank with worry. Ships that big would want something in return for their help. What if these new aliens were worse than the Kreks? How long until they arrive? She asked. 4 hours, maybe less. They're moving very fast. Yuna went back to the window. The Kreks ships were still firing at the shields, but they seemed smaller now, less scary. Soon help would come from the stars. She just hoped they had made the right choice. The next few hours felt like days. The shields failed twice, but emergency. Power brought them back online. The crystal towers sang sad songs as energy flowed through them. In the distance, Krek's landing ships started moving toward the planet. Then everything changed. Space near Thessara Prime suddenly filled with light, as ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. But these were not the small craft the Villani had expected. These were giants. Each ship was longer than their biggest city and covered in weapons that glowed with deadly energy. "By the ancient trees," whispered Kai. "What are those things?" Yuna stared at the ships on the display. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of metal fish. The design was strange, all angles and armor, built for war in a way that made her skin crawl. "Are they talking to us?" she asked Mira. "Trying to. The signal is coming in now." A voice filled the command center. It was deep and calm, speaking their language with a slight accent. "This is Admiral Tejo of the Human Defense Fleet. We received your distress call. Please identify yourself and confirm your situation." Humans. Yuna had never heard of them before, but their ships looked like they could eat Krek's warships for breakfast. "This is Council Leader Yuna of the Villani Confederation. We are under attack by the Kreks Empire. They have 500 ships and are trying to invade our world." "Understood. Please stand by while we assess the tactical situation." The human ships spread out across the system like they owned it. Even watching on sensors, Yuna could tell these aliens knew exactly what they were doing. "Yuna," said Leo in a scared voice. "The Krek ships are pulling back from the planet. They've seen the human fleet." On the display, the Krek's warships were moving into defensive positions. 500 ships against 200. The Kreks still had more ships, but something about the way they moved told Yuna they were afraid. The human admiral's voice came back. "Council Leader Yuna, we are ready to engage the hostile fleet. Please keep your people in secure locations until the threat is eliminated." "Wait," said Yuna. "There are so many Krek's ships. Are you sure you can—" "Don't worry about the numbers," said Admiral Tejo. His voice sounded almost bored. "We'll handle this." The human ships moved forward like hunters closing in on prey. Yuna realized she was about to see what happened when someone answered a desperate call for help. She just hoped her people would survive what came next. The human ships moved through space like they had done this 1,000 times before. Yuna watched from the command center as the massive vessels took positions around Thessara Prime. The Krek's fleet had stopped firing at the planet and was now trying to figure out what to do about these new arrivals. "Council Leader Yuna," came Admiral Tejo's voice over the communication system. "I would like to meet with you and your military advisors to discuss the situation. May I come aboard your station?" Yuna felt her stomach flutter with nervousness. She had never met an alien from outside their local star group. What would these humans look like? What did they want? "Of course, Admiral. We welcome you to our world. I'll be there in 20 minutes with a small team. Please don't be alarmed. By our appearance, we know we look different from most species." That was a strange thing to say. How different could they be? 20 minutes later, Yuna stood in the docking bay with Kai and Sora, her military advisor. Sora was trying to look brave, but Yuna could see his hands shaking. None of them knew what to expect. A small ship landed in the bay. It was sleek and black with no decorations or bright colors. Just efficient metal designed for war. The door opened with a soft hiss. The first human to step out made Yuna take a step backward without meaning to. He was tall, much taller than any Vallani. His skin was pale and smooth, not green and textured like theirs. But it was his face that made her nervous. His eyes pointed forward like a hunter's. When he smiled, she could see sharp teeth designed for eating meat. This was a predator, a creature, built to kill other living things. Council Leader Yuna, he said, walking toward them with smooth, confident steps. I'm Admiral Taiho. Thank you for meeting with us. Yuna forced herself to stay still as the human approached. Behind him came two more humans. One was smaller with softer features, but still had those forward-facing hunter's eyes. The other was broad and muscular, covered in what looked like armor. This is Dr. Jiho, our diplomatic specialist, said Admiral Taiho, pointing to the smaller human, and Colonel Minho, who leads our ground forces. Welcome to Thesara Prime, said Yuna, trying to keep her voice steady. We are grateful that you answered our call for help. Of course, said Admiral Taiho. We received your distress signal and came as quickly as we could, though I have to say we're curious about this Krex Empire. We don't have much information about them in our databases. Dr. Jiho stepped forward with a small device in his hands. May I scan the area? I want to make sure we understand your physiology correctly so we don't accidentally harm you with our weapons. Your weapons could harm us? Asked Sora. The humans looked at each other. Colonel Minho spoke for the first time. His voice was deep and rough. Our weapons are designed to work in many different environments. Sometimes they can affect friendly forces if we're not careful. I see, said Yuna, though she didn't really understand. Please, let's go to the command center where we can talk privately. As they walked through the crystal corridors of the station, Dr. Jiho kept looking around with interest. Beautiful architecture, he said. Grown rather than built. Correct? Very efficient use of materials. Thank you, said Kai. The crystals are alive. We sing to them and they grow in the shapes we need. Fascinating. On our world, we have to cut and shape everything by force. Much more destructive, but it works for us. They reached the command center, where displays showed the current military situation. The Krex ships were still in orbit, but they had moved into a defensive formation. They seemed to be waiting for something. Admiral Taiho studied the displays with professional interest. 500 ships. What class are they? Class? Asked Sora. How big are they? What weapons do they carry? How many soldiers? Sora looked confused. We don't usually think about such things. They're just ships. Big ones. Colonel Minho made a sound that might have been laughter. You've never fought a war before, have you? The Vallani are a peaceful people, said Yuna with some pride. We settle disputes through discussion and trade. Admirable, said Dr. Jiho, but not very practical when someone wants to kill you. Admiral Taiho was still studying the displays. These Krex ships look fairly standard. Plasma weapons, basic shielding, probably nuclear missiles. Nothing too advanced. Nothing too advanced? Said Kai. They destroyed our entire fleet. How many ships did you have? Asked Colonel Minho. 30. Our best warships, the 3 humans, were quiet for a moment. Then Dr. Jiho spoke gently. I don't think those were warships. They look like research vessels with basic defense systems. Yuna felt heat rise in her cheeks. They were the best we had. I'm not criticizing, said Admiral Tejo. Different species develop in different ways. You've built a beautiful civilization, based on growth and harmony. We've built ours based on survival and conflict. What do you mean? Asked Yuna. Dr. Jiho set up his scanning device and pointed it at the Krex fleet. Earth, our home world, is what we call a death world. Everything there tries to kill you. The weather, the animals, the plants, even some of the rocks. Humans evolved by learning to fight or die. That sounds horrible, said Kai. It made us very good at war, said Colonel Minho, which is useful when peaceful species need protection. Admiral Taiho was looking at new readings from the scan. The Krex ships are powered by fusion reactors, standard armor plating. Crew of about 2,000 per ship. Total enemy force approximately 1 million soldiers. Is that a lot? Asked Sora. For this type of operation, it's about what I'd expect. Admiral Tejo seemed calm, like he was discussing the weather. Colonel Minho, how many Marines did we bring? 50,000 across the fleet. Good, that should be enough. Yuna stared at the humans. You're going to fight 1 million enemies with 50,000 soldiers? Oh, we're not planning a ground war, said Admiral Tejo. We'll handle this from space. Much cleaner that way. But there are 500 enemy ships, and only 200 of yours. Dr. Jiho smiled, showing those sharp predator teeth. Numbers aren't everything. Our ships are bigger, faster, and much better armed. Plus, we've been doing this for a long time. How long? Asked Yuna. Humans have been fighting wars for about 10,000 years, said Colonel Minho. We've gotten pretty good at it. Admiral Tejo walked over to the communication console. May I speak to the Krex commander? You want to talk to them? Asked Sora. It's polite to offer surrender terms before you destroy someone. Yuna felt a chill run down her spine. These humans talked about destroying 500 ships like it was a simple task. What kind of weapons did they have? The communication system crackled to life. A harsh voice filled the room, speaking in the guttural language of the Krex Empire. This is War Leader Grixak of the Krex Third Fleet. Who dares interfere with our conquest? Admiral Taiho spoke calmly into the microphone. This is Admiral Tejo of the Human Defense Fleet. You are attacking a world under our protection. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Grixak made a sound like angry metal scraping together. Humans? I've never heard of your species. You have only 200 ships against my 500. Leave now, and we'll let you live. I'm going to give you one more chance, said Admiral Tejo. Leave this system now. Don't come back. Don't attack any Villani worlds ever again. Or what? Or, we'll show you why peaceful species call for human help when predators come knocking. The communication channel went silent. Then Grixak's laughter filled the room. You think you can frighten the Krex Empire? We are the strongest military force in this sector. We've conquered 50 worlds. 51 was probably your limit anyway, said Admiral Tejo. He turned to Colonel Minho. Ready the fleet for combat. Rules of engagement are unrestricted. No prisoners. Wait, said Yuna. No prisoners? But what if they surrender? Dr. Jiho looked at her with something that might have been pity. Species like the Krex don't really surrender. They retreat, regroup, and attack again later. It's better to solve the problem permanently. Outside the windows, the human ships began to move. They looked like metal sharks swimming through the darkness, closing in on their prey. Yuna realized she was about to see what happened when predators fought each other. She just hoped her people were on the right side. The battle began without warning. One moment, the human and Krex fleets were staring at each other across the darkness of space. The next moment, lines of pure energy were cutting through the void, like the claws of angry gods. Yuna watched from the command center as the human ships opened fire. The weapons were nothing like what she had expected. Instead of the bright plasma bolts the Krex used, human weapons fired beams of focused light that moved too fast to see. The only sign they existed was when they hit their targets. And when they hit, Krex ships simply stopped existing. "By the ancient trees," whispered Kai. "What are those weapons?" Dr. Jiho was standing beside them, watching the battle with calm interest. "Particle beams. They work by destroying the bonds between atoms. Very clean, very efficient." A Krex cruiser that had been firing at the human fleet suddenly split in half. The two pieces drifted apart, leaking atmosphere and debris. "Clean?" said Sora. "That ship had 2,000 people on it." "Better than nuclear weapons," said Colonel Minho. "Those leave radiation that lasts for centuries. Particle beams just stop things from being alive." Yuna felt sick. She had asked for help, but this was like watching monsters fight monsters. The humans moved their ships with perfect coordination, surrounding groups of Krex vessels and destroying them one by one. But what scared her most was how calm the humans were about it. "Admiral," called a voice from one of the human ships. "Enemy formation Beta is trying to break toward the planet. Should we intercept?" "Let them come," said Admiral Taiho. "Kyung, are your fighters ready?" "Standing by, sir." "Launch all squadrons. Show the Krex what happens when they threaten civilians." Through the window, Yuna saw small ships launching from the human fleet. They moved like angry insects, swarming toward the approaching Krex vessels. "How many fighters are you launching?" asked Yuna. "About 300, said Admiral Taiho. "Each one piloted by someone who's been training for this since they were children." "Children?" "We start military training young on Earth," explained Dr. Jiho. "When your world tries to kill you every day, you learn to fight back early, or you don't survive to have children of your own." One of the human fighters was being chased by 3 Krex ships. Yuna watched in horror as plasma bolts filled the space around the small craft. But instead of being destroyed, the human fighter twisted through the attack like it was dancing. Then it turned around and destroyed all 3 enemy ships with weapons that seemed impossibly powerful for such a small vessel. "That's Seojin," said Colonel Minho with something like pride. "Best pilot in the squadron. He's only 22 years old." 22? Yuna couldn't believe it. He's still a child. On Earth, 22 is old enough to vote, get married, and command a warship, said Dr. Jiho. "Different worlds, different customs." The battle was turning into a massacre. The Krex ships were bigger and more numerous, but they moved like clumsy giants compared to the human vessels. Every time they tried to form up for an attack, the humans would appear somewhere else and cut them apart. "Admiral Taiho," came another voice from the fleet. "This is Captain Do-hyun on the Defender. The enemy is trying to send a distress signal to their home fleet." "Block all communications," ordered Admiral Taiho. "No one leaves this system to report what happened here." "Sir, some of the Krex ships are trying to surrender." Admiral Taiho was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke in that same calm voice. "Did they give the Villani a chance to surrender?" "No, sir. They went straight to planetary bombardment." "Then extend them the same courtesy. Continue the attack." Yuna grabbed Admiral Taiho's arm. "Wait! You can't just kill people who are trying to surrender!" The Admiral looked down at her hand on his arm, then at her face. His expression wasn't angry, but it wasn't kind either. "Council Leader, the Krex Empire has destroyed 50 worlds. They've killed billions of peaceful people just like you. This isn't about revenge. It's about making sure they never do it again. But if they surrender, they'll go home, regroup, and attack someone else," said Colonel Minho. "Maybe another Villani world. Maybe something worse. The only way to stop a predator is to remove it completely." Dr. Jiho put a gentle hand on Yuna's shoulder. "I know this is hard to watch. Your people aren't built for this kind of thinking. But sometimes violence is the only answer to violence." On the displays, the last group of Krex ships was being surrounded. They had stopped firing and were broadcasting surrender messages in a dozen languages. The human ships closed in anyway. "This is War Leader Grixak," came the desperate voice, over the communication system. "We yield. We surrender. Please show mercy." Admiral Taiho picked up the microphone. "You should have thought about mercy before you attacked peaceful worlds." The human ships fired as one. The remaining Krex vessels disappeared in flashes of light that lasted only a few seconds. Then there was silence. The battle was over. 500 Krex ships had been destroyed in less than 2 hours. The human fleet had lost exactly 0 vessels. "Status. Report," called Admiral Taiho. "All enemy ships destroyed," came the reply. "No survivors detected. Human casualties. 3 fighters damaged, no deaths. Good work. Begin cleanup operations." Yuna stared at the displays. Where the Krex fleet had been, there was now only empty space and slowly expanding clouds of debris. 1 million soldiers gone just like that. "How?" she asked quietly. "How what?" said Dr. Jiho. "How did you do that? They had more ships, more weapons. How did you win so easily?" Colonel Minho answered. "Because we're apex predators and they were just bullies. Bullies fall apart when they meet something that can actually fight back. But the numbers don't matter when you have better technology, better training, and better tactics," said Admiral Taiho. "The Krex Empire conquered 50 worlds of peaceful species. They've never fought anyone who could fight back." Dr. Jiho was working with his scanning device again. "From what I can tell, most of their weapons and ships are stolen technology from the species they conquered. They're scavengers, not warriors." "What about you?" asked Yuna. "What are humans?" The 3 humans looked at each other. Colonel Minho spoke first. "We're what happens when a death world tries to kill a species for 1 million years and fails. We're what evolution creates when everything else wants to eat you," added Dr. Jiho. Admiral Taiho was checking reports from his fleet. "We're the reason peaceful species like yours can exist in a galaxy full of things that want to hurt you." As if to prove his point, another voice came over the communication system. "Admiral, this is Lieutenant Hana on the reconnaissance ship. We've been scanning the destroyed Krex vessels. You need to see this." "What did you find?" "Cargo holds full of artifacts. Art, books, crystals similar to the ones here on Thessera Prime. Looks like they've been looting every world they conquer." "Any survivors among the cargo?" "Some. Mostly children from different species. They appear to be slaves." Yuna felt her heart skip. "Children? They were taking children?" "Slavers often do," said Colonel Minho grimly. "Another reason we don't accept surrenders from people like this." Admiral Taiho was already giving orders. "Rescue teams to all cargo ships immediately. Get those children to medical bay and contact their homeworlds if possible." As human ships moved to rescue the survivors, Yuna realized something that made her feel cold and warm at the same time. The humans hadn't just been fighting to protect Thessara Prime, they'd been fighting to stop something truly evil. "How did you know?" she asked. "How did you know the Kreks were slavers?" Dr. Jiho smiled sadly. "Because we've seen it before. Many times. The galaxy is full of species that prey on the weak. That's why we come when people call for help. But who called for help when Earth was attacked?" "No one," said Admiral Tejo simply. "We learned to save ourselves. Now we save others." Outside the window, human ships were carefully collecting the rescued slaves and bringing them to safety. Yuna watched and realized that maybe having predators for protectors wasn't such a bad thing after all, as long as you were on their good side. 3 days after the battle, Yuna stood in her garden watching human ships build something in orbit around Thessara Prime. They had asked permission first, which was polite, but when she asked what they were building, Admiral Taiho had simply said defensive platforms and changed the subject. The platforms looked like metal flowers with too many thorns. "Council leader?" Kai approached from behind, his footsteps soft on the crystal paths. "The humans want to meet with you again. Something about security arrangements." Yuna sighed. Every day brought new meetings about security. The humans were very concerned about security. They wanted to know about every ship that visited Villani space. They wanted detailed maps of all Villani worlds. They wanted to set up communication relays and early warning systems. All very reasonable, all very helpful, all very controlling. "Send them to the council chambers," she said. "I'll be there in a moment." When she arrived, she found Admiral Tejo waiting with a woman she hadn't met before. The new human was smaller than the Admiral, with sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. "Council Leader Yuna," said Admiral Tejo. "This is Lieutenant Hana from our intelligence division. She has some concerns about regional security." Lieutenant Hana stood and bowed slightly. "Thank you for meeting with us. I'll get straight to the point. Our analysis shows that the Krex Empire has at least 12 more fleets scattered across this sector. When they don't hear from War Leader Grixak, they'll come looking." "More Krex?" Yuna felt her stomach sink. "Probably within a few months," said Hana. "That's why we need to strengthen defenses throughout Villani space. Not just here at Thessara Prime." She activated a holographic display that showed the local star systems. Red dots marked Krex positions. Blue dots showed human ships. Green dots were Villani worlds. There were a lot more red dots than green ones. "We're proposing a comprehensive defense network," continued Hana. "Automated platforms around each major world, patrol routes for our ships, sensor arrays to detect incoming threats." "That sounds expensive," said Yuna. "We'll handle the costs," said Admiral Tejo. "Consider it an investment in regional stability." Yuna studied the holographic map. The proposed human bases would cover every important Villani world. The patrol routes would put human ships everywhere in their space. "Where would your people live while they're stationed here?" "We'll build our own facilities," said Hana. "Small bases, nothing intrusive. Most of our personnel will rotate in and out on regular schedules." "And command structure?" Admiral Taiho and Lieutenant Hana exchanged a look. "For military matters, human forces would operate under Earth command," said the Admiral. "But we'd coordinate closely with Villani authorities." That was the problem, wasn't it? The humans kept saying they would coordinate, but somehow they always ended up making the decisions. "May I think about this?" asked Yuna. "Of course," said Admiral Tejo. "But time is a factor. The longer we wait to set up defenses, the more vulnerable your people are." After the humans left, Yuna called an emergency council meeting. The other Villani leaders gathered in the crystal chamber that had been used for peaceful discussions for thousands of years. Now they were talking about war. They want to put military bases on every world, said Counselor Bora. That's not protection. That's occupation. But they saved us, argued Counselor Day. Without them, we'd all be dead or enslaved. And now we're supposed to be grateful forever? Bora's leaf-green skin had turned dark with anger. They're changing everything! Yuna knew what she meant. Since the humans arrived, everything had started changing. The humans had suggested improvements to their communication systems. Better power distribution, more efficient transportation networks, all good ideas, all helpful improvements, all designed to make Villani civilization work more like human civilization. They're not doing it on purpose, said Kai quietly. I've been working with their engineers. They genuinely want to help, but they think everyone should do things the human way because the human way works. Works for what? Asked Bora. War. Yes, said Kai. Everything they build is designed to survive attack. Their ships, their buildings, even their food production. They can't imagine any other way to live. Counselor Day leaned forward. Maybe that's not a bad thing. The Kreks found us easily because we weren't prepared for war. The humans are offering to make sure that never happens again. At what cost? Asked Bora. Our freedom? Our culture? Our way of life? Before anyone could answer, an alert chimed through the chamber. Mira's voice came over the communication system. Council Leader Yuna, we're receiving a priority message from the human fleet. Put it through. Admiral Tejo's face appeared on the main display. He looked concerned. Council Leader, our long-range sensors have detected a Krek scouting force moving toward this system. 12 ships moving fast. They'll be here in 6 hours. Yuna felt cold. Are they coming to attack? Probably just to investigate what happened. To their main fleet. But we can't take chances. I'm moving our ships to intercept positions. What do you need from us? Just stay in secure locations until we give the all-clear. This shouldn't take long. The communication ended. In the council chamber, no one spoke for several minutes. Finally, Counselor Day broke the silence. 12 ships. If the humans weren't here, could we fight 12 ships? You know we couldn't, said Kai. So we need them, said Day. The question is, said Bora slowly, do we need them forever? Yuna looked around the chamber at her fellow leaders. They were good people who had built a beautiful civilization based on growth and harmony. But they were also people who couldn't protect themselves from a dozen enemy ships. Let's watch what happens with this scouting force, she said. Then we'll decide about the bases. 4 hours later, they had their answer. The Krek scouts never made it into the system. The human fleet intercepted them at the edge of Villani space and destroyed them so quickly that the Villani sensors barely registered the fight. 12 ships gone in minutes. No communication, no surrender, no survivors. Admiral Tejo's report was brief. Threat eliminated, Krek scouting force destroyed, no damage to human vessels, resuming normal patrol patterns. That was it. 12 ships full of living beings had been erased from existence, and the humans talked about it like a minor maintenance task. They're so efficient, whispered Kai. They're terrifying, said Bora. Yuna realized both statements were true. The next day, she met with Admiral Tejo again. This time, she brought the whole council. We've discussed your proposal, she said. We agree to the defensive platforms and sensor networks. Excellent, said the Admiral. And the bases? Yuna took a deep breath. We'll try a limited arrangement. 3 bases to start with. Small installations as you promised. We'll evaluate how it works and discuss expansion later." "That's acceptable," said Admiral Taiho. "I think you'll find that human protection is very effective." As the humans began drawing up plans for their bases, Yuna wondered if they had just solved their security problems or created new ones. But when she looked at the star charts showing Krek's positions throughout the sector, she knew they had made the only choice they could. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and sometimes dangerous protectors were better than no protectors at all. She just hoped they could remain the Villani while learning to live with humanity. 6 months after the first human ships arrived at Thesara Prime, Yuna sat in a room she had never expected to see. The human base on the northern continent was built into a mountain with walls thick enough to survive almost anything. Everything was gray metal and sharp angles, so different from the flowing crystal architecture of her people. Across from her sat Ambassador Junho, the newest human to arrive in Villani space. Unlike the military officers she had grown used to, he smiled often and spoke in gentle tones. But he still had those forward-facing predator eyes. "I know this is difficult," he said, pushing a data pad across the metal table. "But I think you need to see this." Yuna picked up the device and looked at the information displayed on its screen. Star charts, ship movements, attack reports. Her hands began to shake as she read. 17 worlds, she whispered. "Attacked by the Krex Empire in the last month," confirmed Junho. "All of them peaceful species like yours. None of them had any defenses." The images on the screen were horrible. Burned cities, refugee ships fleeing through space, entire populations enslaved or killed. "But why are you showing me this?" "Because these attacks were launched from bases we couldn't find before. The Krex Empire is bigger than we thought. Much bigger." Junho activated a larger holographic display. The 3-dimensional map showed a section of the galaxy that took Yuna's breath away. Red dots marked Krex-controlled systems. There were hundreds of them. "We estimate they control at least 300 star systems," said Junho. "That's roughly 50 million ships and 5 billion soldiers." Yuna stared at the display. 5 billion? The Krex don't just conquer worlds, they strip mine them. They take every resource, every person, every useful technology. They've been doing it for centuries. And you're going to fight them? All of them? Junho was quiet for a moment. "We're going to try, but we can't do it alone." "What do you mean?" "Come with me. There's something else you need to see." They walked through corridors carved from solid rock until they reached a chamber that hummed with quiet energy. Inside, Yuna saw something that made her heart stop. A Villani child was sitting at a human computer, working alongside a human child. They were building something together on the screen, laughing as they made mistakes and fixed them. "That's Nari," said Junho. "She's learning human mathematics and engineering. The human boy is Hyunwoo. He's learning Villani bioarchitecture and crystal growth techniques." Yuna watched the children work together. "What are they building?" "A new type of ship. One that combines human weapons with Villani healing technology. The idea is that it could fight battles and then help repair the damage afterward." "Children designed this?" "Children see possibilities that adults miss," said Junho. "They don't know what's supposed to be impossible." They moved to another section of the chamber. Here, adult Villani were working with human scientists. One group was growing crystals that glowed with energy. Another was testing new medical devices. "Dr. Wu Jin is our best engineer," said Junho, pointing to a human woman working with Villani crystals. But she's learned more about energy storage in 6 months with your people than she did in 20 years on Earth. And what have our people learned? How to defend themselves, how to think about problems in new ways, how to survive in a galaxy that wants to hurt them. A Vellani scientist named Yunbi looked up from her work. Council leader, come see this. Yuna approached the workstation where Yunbi was examining something under a microscope. What is it? A Krex bioweapon, said Yunbi. We found it in the wreckage of one of their ships. It's designed to kill plant-based life forms like us. Yuna felt cold. They were going to poison us? Probably release it into your atmosphere after they conquered the planet, said Dr. Wu Jin. Standard Krex procedure according to our intelligence. Reports? But here's the interesting part, said Yunbi excitedly. Working with human immune system research, I think I can develop a cure. Not just for us, but for all the species the Krex have been poisoning. Yunho watched Yuna's face carefully. Do you see what's happening here? Our people are learning to think like you. No. Our peoples are learning to think together. Humans are good at fighting and surviving. Vellani are good at healing and growing. Combined, we might be able to do something neither species could do alone. Like what? Like stopping the Krex Empire permanently, not just defending against them, but actually ending their ability to hurt anyone ever again. Yuna looked around the chamber at humans and Vellani working side by side. It should have looked wrong. Predators and prey shouldn't be able to cooperate, but somehow it worked. What would this cooperation cost us? She asked. Your isolation, said Junho honestly. You'd become part of something bigger than just the Vellani Confederation, part of a galactic community dedicated to protecting peaceful species from aggressive ones. And in return, you'd never have to face threats like the Krex alone again. When someone attacks a member of the Alliance, they attack all of us. How many species are in this alliance? Junho smiled. Right now, just humans. You'd be the second. But I said we're trying to build a galactic community. Every alliance starts with 2 members. Yuna walked over to where the children were working. Nari looked up from her computer with bright, happy eyes. Council leader, look what we made! The child pointed to the screen where a beautiful ship design rotated slowly. It looked like a fusion of human engineering and Vellani bioarchitecture, strong enough to fight, graceful enough to heal. It's beautiful, said Yuna. Hyunwoo taught me about metal stress patterns, and I taught him about crystal matrix growth. Together we can make ships that fix themselves. The human child, Hyunwoo, nodded enthusiastically. And if they get damaged in battle, they can grow new parts instead of needing repairs? Yuna looked at their excited faces and realized something important. These children didn't see humans and Vellani as predator and prey. They just saw 2 different kinds of people with different skills. Maybe that was the future. Ambassador Junho, she said. I need to discuss this with the full council, but I think we're interested in your alliance. Take all the time you need. But while you're deciding, would you like to see our long-term plans for dealing with the Krex Empire? You have long-term plans? Humans always have long-term plans. We learned that planning ahead is the difference between surviving and thriving. An hour later, Yuna sat in the council chamber with her fellow leaders, looking at the most ambitious military strategy she had ever seen. The humans weren't just planning to defend against the Krex Empire. They were planning to liberate every world the Krex had conquered and free every species they had enslaved. This would take decades, said Councilor Bora. Probably, agreed Admiral Tejo, who had joined the meeting. But the alternative is letting the Kreks continue to spread across the galaxy until they're too powerful for anyone to stop. And you think we can help with this? Your healing technology could save millions of lives, said Dr. Jiho. Your bioarchitecture could help rebuild destroyed worlds. Your natural empathy could help traumatized populations recover from Krek's occupation. Counselor Day leaned forward. What you're describing isn't just an alliance. It's a complete change in how our species lives. Yes, said Ambassador Junho, but consider the alternative. You can stay isolated and hope no one else attacks you. Or you can help build a galaxy where peaceful species don't have to live in fear. The council debated for hours. Some worried about losing their independence. Others feared the changes that closer cooperation with humans would bring. A few wondered if they could trust predators to protect prey indefinitely. But in the end, it was the children who decided things. Young Nari stood up during the debate and spoke in her clear, simple voice. The humans saved us. Now they want to save everyone else too. Isn't that what good people do? The council voted unanimously to join the Human Defense Alliance. A year later, Yuna stood on an observation deck watching the first joint human-Volani fleet depart for a rescue mission. 50 ships, half human warships and half Volani hospital ships. They were going to liberate a world that had been under Krek's control for 20 years. Beside her stood Admiral Taiho, now the overall military commander of the Alliance. Nervous? He asked. Terrified, she admitted, but also hopeful. That's exactly how you should feel before doing something important. On the deck below, human and Volani crew members worked together preparing for departure. They had learned each other's languages, shared their technologies, and become something new. Not human, not Volani, but something better than either species alone. Do you think we can really do it? Asked Yuna. Stop the Krek's empire completely? I think we can. Try, said Admiral Taiho, and sometimes trying is enough to change everything. The ships disappeared into hyperspace, carrying hope to a galaxy that had forgotten what it felt like to fight back against the darkness. Behind them, on Thesera Prime, human and Volani children played together in crystal gardens while their parents built a future where peaceful species could grow and thrive under the protection of those willing to fight for them. It wasn't the future Yuna had expected when she sent that desperate message into space. But it was a future worth having.